Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Colossal Arena. Colossal Arena is a card game in which players are betting on monsters fighting in a gladiator-style arena. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, and then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Colossal Arena, set up for a two-player game. To set up, you pick 8 creatures in any way you choose. You could draft them out of the 12, or you could just randomize like I did. And if every creature has combat cards 0 to 10 in his or her type, and you make a deck out of those, along with some neutral cards that apply to everybody, like this Minotaur here. And you know they're neutral because the name is in yellow and the card is also kind of a grayish card. And there's a couple action cards that go in there as well, but point being, the deck is formed and each player gets a hand of 8 cards. Players choose a color and they get 5 betting tokens in that color, and that forms their area. The game is played over 5 rounds, and each round one of these creatures will be eliminated. Players take their turns by going through the following phases in order: place a bet, play a card, discard or draw cards, and check for creature elimination. At the end of the game, any of the surviving creatures' bets pay out, so the player who bet most effectively will be the winner. So let's go through the phases. Let's start with place a bet because that happens first. So on a player's turn, they have the option to place a normal bet, place a secret bet, reveal a secret bet, or pass. And mind you, you only get these 5 tokens here, so once you use them, they're totally gone. We'll start with a normal bet, and that's very simply, every round is divided into these rows here. So this round, for instance, cards are going to be played in the first row. Second round, they'll be played in a row below that, and so on. So the way you place a normal bet is you place it in an empty space above the current row, and you're essentially betting on that space. You'll see the earlier in the game you bet on a creature, the more points it's worth. So if round 1 you bet on a creature, it's worth 4, but in round 4 if you bet, it's only worth 1 at the end of the game, if that creature survives. Remember, only surviving creatures score. And once somebody bets in a current round on that creature, you can't bet there. So if it was Yellow's turn, this Etten space was already occupied, so he wouldn't be able to bet there as well. He could certainly bet on Etten in a later round though. Once per game, you also have the ability to make a secret bet, and that's the most valuable bet of all. It's actually worth 5 gold. And what you do is you take a card from your hand, and you put that card face down above the top row of cards, and you put your token on it. Whatever card is depicted here, that's who your secret bet is on. So in this case, it would be on the worm. And that's exactly how secret bets work. You're limited to 1 per game, and it must be before any creature is eliminated. You can only make a secret bet in the first round of the game. Also, when you make a secret bet, because you're sort of playing a card at the same time, you skip the play a card part of your turn. So you're going to go right on to discard and draw cards, and we'll explain that in a moment. Also, instead of placing a bet, you have the option to reveal your secret bet. Is this part of your turn? And you just reveal it, you discard the card, and then you kind of place your bet above that guy. Also, you can immediately become the backer in this way, and we'll talk about backers when we get into playing combat cards because they're tied very closely together. So the last thing you can do, and probably what you're going to do most of your parts of this phase, is to pass. But remember, you can't reveal your secret bet and place a bet in the same turn. That would be your entire action. But you are limited to the 5, so passing is fairly typical. So that brings us to the second part of the turn, and that is play a card. Most of what you're going to be doing is playing combat cards, but there are also spectator cards, referee cards, and a very rare chance at passing. So most of the cards in the deck are combat cards, which just depict these creatures and have a number from 0 to 7. What you do is you play that card in the corresponding row that we're in, so we're still in the first round of the game. Later rounds we'd be playing down there and so on. It covers any card of that same type. So if there was already a troll under this, it would be completely covered up. No one is allowed to look at it. But you always play it in that spot. And if you're the backer, you get to use that creature's ability. So the way you become a backer is you have the highest amount of bets showing on the board. Remember, your secret bet is not shown until you reveal it. And the value of those bets is determined by how many points they're worth at the end of the game. So if you do have a bet here, for instance, and you were the backer of the troll, meaning nobody else ties you. If it's a tie, there's no backer at all, and you play a troll card, you immediately have the option to take that effect. And that's how being a backer works. Later in the game, though, somebody can steal being the backer from you by revealing a secret bet or just playing more bets in that particular area. It's also important to note you only get to use an effect as the backer if you play a card from your hand. There are some cards, like the unicorn, that let you move things around. Even if you move things around onto a card that you are the backer of, you don't get to use the ability at that time. Next are spectator cards, and unlike the character creature cards, they can be played on anybody. And again, they have this yellow name, they're neutral, and you just play them there. And there's 0 to 10, of course, in their type as well. So when they're played on a space, even if you're the backer, you don't get to take that ability. And it says it right here in the card in case you forget. One significant thing here is even if this player was the backer of the troll and he played this on top of a spectator card, he doesn't get to take the backer ability. This itself can't activate it, and it prevents the next card being played there from activating that ability. Next, there's a couple of action cards in this game. They're known as referee cards, and here's one of them. You just play the card and you do what it says, and then you discard it from the game. And that's all that it does. It doesn't actually stay out there. You're not allowed to pass in this game. You must play a card if you can, but you can only play cards in the current row on surviving creatures. You can never play on a creature that's already been eliminated. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where your whole hand is creatures that have already been eliminated, you have to show your hand to your opponents to prove this. It's almost impossible, and then you get to pass. You don't have to play a card that turn. The next phase of the turn is to discard and draw cards. So if you have creatures that are eliminated from the board, you can show them to your opponents, and you may discard up to 3. Even if your whole hand is eliminated creatures, you can only discard up to 3, and then you draw back up to 8 cards. But it's important to note, if the last card in the deck is drawn, it doesn't need to be a situation where you have to draw another and the deck is empty. As soon as that last card is drawn, the game will end. It may be premature, meaning you haven't completed all the rounds of the game, but the scores will be still calculated at that time based on whatever creatures are surviving. The normal way around ends is the last part of the turn, which is check for creature elimination. And the way you do that is you check if all surviving creatures have a card placed in front of them. If they do, if there is one creature among them with the lowest value, that creature is eliminated. And what I mean by that is if Troll, Cyclops, Titan, Etten, Magus, Unicorn, Worm, and Demon all had a card here, and one of them was lower than the other. So if in this example this was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 laid out, meaning all creatures have a card and the demon is the lowest, that means at the end of that player's turn, the demon would be eliminated. And the next player would start the following round in a lower level. As mentioned, the game ends if the deck runs out, but more typically it ends after the 5th round, meaning there's only 3 of these 8 creatures left alive. And at that point, players tally the value of their bets. Remember, the earlier you bet on a creature, the more valuable the bet. Higher risk, higher reward. The player with the most points wins. Let's get going with this example playthrough. Each player has their hand of 8 cards, which would normally be for their eyes only, but we're keeping it face up to make it easy. So this player is going to go first and has the opportunity to place a bet. He decides he doesn't want to do that at this time, and he's just going to lay a 2 out on Etten. Since he doesn't have any cards of any creatures that have been eliminated, because none have been eliminated yet, he just draws 1 to get back up to 8 as normal. Then he checks for elimination. There's only 1 card out, and it's only on Etten. Not all characters that are alive have a card on them, so no one is eliminated no matter what. Now for this player's turn, he decides he wants to make his secret bet already. So he's going to put a card face down, and he's going to put a token on top of it. Because he did that, he doesn't play a card this turn, and he skips right to the draw phase, so he draws back up to 8. And of course, checking for elimination, no one's eliminated. It's important to note that he could have waited till a lot later in this round to do this, but it must be done during the first round and once per game only. So now it's this player's turn, and he decides to play a card. He doesn't really feel very happy about that troll, so he's going to put a 0 in that troll and draw back up to 8. We'll jump ahead to when we're a little closer to the end of the round so you can see what that looks like. Welcome back. It's almost the end of this round, and it's this player's turn. First thing he's going to do is he's going to place a normal bet on the demon because it's still empty, and then he's going to throw down a unicorn here. Now at this part of his turn, he draws back up to 8, so it's actually 2 cards because the other player has been using the Titan to steal cards from his hand because that's the Titan's ability, and he is the backer. But now the round is over because we're checking for elimination, and we see each character has at least 1 card there, and the troll is the definitive lowest. No one is tied with him. If it was tied, it would continue with this round, but the troll here is dead, and you can indicate that however you want. So now no more cards can be played in the troll, and we move on to the second round. We'll be back at the end of the game to show you what it looks like. Welcome back. We're in the 5th and final round, and you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. It's the 5th line down, and the yellow player just finished his turn, but he needs to draw 4 cards, and there's only 2 left in the deck. 4 because you can discard some now that a lot of characters are eliminated. So the game is over, even though only 1 more card needed to be played to finish this round. So there are actually 4 surviving monsters. They are the Worm, Unicorn, Magus, and Etten. So now players calculate their points. Blue had a secret bet on the Worm, so that's 5, plus this bet here is 9. And then he had a normal bet in the first round on the Unicorn, so that's 13. And that's his total. Everything else he had bets on has passed away. And the yellow player has 5 for a secret bet on the Magus, and then 3 more, so that's 8, and then 3 more here is 11, and then 3 more here is 14. So the yellow player was a little safer with his bets, but it worked out for him and he is victorious. Colossal Arena is a really fast-paced card game because in its simplest form, you're just playing a card, drawing a card. Although you may discard a few extra eliminated creatures and draw a few more, that's really what you're doing on a given turn. It also can become really tense, especially as a lot of the characters for that turn are filled up and there's only a few more that need to play cards in them before somebody's eliminated. It gets really mind-boggling sometimes what you want to play because you don't want your own guy to get eliminated, but sometimes you just don't have the right cards. One of the biggest standouts for me in this game is the theme. I really enjoyed the idea of the monsters kind of battling in the arena and you're sort of betting on them. Though in the game you definitely have a great impact on who's going to win. So if this one looks fun to you, check it out. It's Colossal Arena.